I'm Charlie Bright of Gold Derby, and today I'm talking with Jamie Kennedy, the Ace Eddie Award winning and Emmy nominated film editor of Weird, the Al Yankovic Story from the Roku channel. First question I wanted to ask you is, are you a fan of Weird Al Yankovic? And if so, what has his music meant to you?
Oh yeah, I've been a fan of Weird Al since, oh, probably elementary school. My first albums in tandem, I think, were Poodle Hat and Running with Scissors. Those were the ones that meant the most to me. I think as a lot of millennials my age, The Saga Begins might have been one of the first introductions to Weird Al. But then, like, as you continue on the Weird Al train, you get the deeper appreciation through life. And I have been on it ever since. My partner and I are both huge fans of Weird Al. We've been to 4 of his concerts out here in LA since living out here. Um, he's just like our favorite artist. So the ability to work on this movie of his entirely true story, everything was his biography, was a great honor to me.
Running with Scissors was the first. I had heard other stuff, like of course Amish Paradise and
Yeah.
Eat It and stuff like that, but the first one I ever bought was Running with Scissors, and that one is just it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so it's so good.
So good.
Pretty Fly for a Rabbi, excellent. All
Mm-hmm.
About the Pentiums, one of my absolute favorites, and then of course the 12-minute screed that is Albuquerque, which is just, which is just madness.
Oh, my road trip out here, that was a big part of as we got to the as we passed through Albuquerque. I'm like, well, this is playing on a loop for the next 3 hours. Don't like it's just the rule. And we should pick up some bear claws while we're here.
Or a box of weasels.
Yep, either or, whichever one they have in stock at the moment.
So I mean, so you are a big fan of Weird Al. How did you become fortunate enough to get the gig editing a movie about his life?
Sometimes I have to pinch myself because I cannot believe it, because my life did peak with it and there's nowhere else to go from here. But I met Eric, the director. We both were on a Quibi show, RIP, called Die Hard. We were paired up on that show, and we were about halfway through working on that show. We were kind of in the period where we were waiting for notes for people, so it was a lot more like chatting about the other projects we're working on, getting to know each other. And then I learned he had done the original Funny or Die video starring Aaron Paul, and I was like, that's one of my favorite YouTube videos of all time. Like, I've watched it numerous times. I'm like, I can't believe it's taken me this long to. I'm terrible at. I should IMDb people I work with a lot sooner in the process than I do. But I was like embarrassed to not know that sooner. And Eric was like, well, me and Al have been trying to work on a feature version of it for quite some time. And I was like, please give me a call if ever that comes to fruition. And he's like, I definitely will. And then he definitely did. And it was such an honor. Like, I got a text message and he's like, do you have a moment to chat on the phone? And I'm like, oh, is this a Die Hard 2 text? Because I knew that Die Hard was going to be having another season. And he was like, actually, it's a Weird the Al Yankovic Story text. And I was like, calling. And I was like, yes, dropping everything. We'll do whatever it takes to work on this.
So getting to the actual like actual editing of this movie, was there any scene in the film that you found more challenging to edit than others?
Oh, there's different. I have like 2 different answers for this. Like I think the more obvious answer is any of our like musical numbers, like Rocky. I Love Rocky Road was kind of a challenge at first because I cut together the first cut of it. It was the first performance that they did, and that I wanted to make sure that I turned that around to Eric while they were still shooting in case we needed anything. So the next day cut together a rough assembly of it, sent it off to him, and we both agreed that like the one thing it was missing was a close-up of Dan, and like it's not totally playing without having this close-up of Dan, but we couldn't, because the shoot was only 18 days, we weren't able to go back to, you know, any locations, but on the last couple days of shooting, the compromise was while they were shooting in like the Weird Al Yankovic house where they were shooting all the Yun Al scenes, they put up a curtain that matched the kind of curtain that was at the bar, and they shot a close-up of Dan lip syncing along to I Love Rocky Road, and I cut it in. We're like, that's it, great, that's what we were missing. And then while they were there, they also got some close-ups for Amish Paradise as well, so they just like put him in the ringer, did some close-ups. So that was one, like, I think just in terms of the timeline that we were working on and how quick things had to turn around, and we were barely lucky to be able to get those pickups. That was a challenge. The real like trial by fire for Eric and I was, and this is a surprising one maybe, is the dad's monologue in the opening of the movie when he's talking about the guy at the factory who died that day. It was originally a much longer monologue. It went into like so many different descriptions of like the crunching and the grinding, and like it also ground the film to a stop at that moment. So we maybe more than any scene in the movie cut that the most. I think we had like 20 versions of it by the time we were done, of like different performances and cutting out early and cutting out later, until we finally found the one that we're like, this is the rhythm we need for this moment. Like, but that was definitely the one where I was like, oh, I cannot look at this scene anymore.
Well, I also wanted to ask about, you know, one of the other great scenes in the movie, which is if I remember correctly, it was an LSD scene.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's the drug tripping scene. I can't remember. I couldn't remember if LSD was the actual cause of that or not.
Yes,
But
LSD laced guacamole specifically.
which Rainn Wilson probably just had on him.
You'd have to talk to Crafty to hear about that.
That is such. I love scenes like that that just go to a whole other level of insanity. And what is it like editing, you know, something as insane as that?
Yeah, it's both freeing and very stressful, because you're kind of building it all from scratch, because all you have are like the actors on the green screen. You have the idea, like what Eric was pitching, you know, we knew that it was going to be like getting dragged to hell, and Dr. Dementos comes down from a cloud, and then suddenly he's brought up, he's in this like horrific version of the factory. But it's the kind of thing where you can't just like lay out the green screen performances and call it a day, because like you need to get the pacing and everything right before it goes off to the VFX. So it involved a lot of like pushing my Avid to the brink in terms of what it could handle temp graphic wise, but building it ourselves in order to basically get a mock-up of what it was all to be. So I was bringing in like YouTube rips of hell, and I was bringing in YouTube rips of different things. There was a moment where it was like we were supposed to push in on the shredder that he was slowly going towards, and I'm like, I feel like there's a scene that I'm thinking of that is reminiscent of this. And then I remembered it was the scene in Toy Story 3 when it was like the vertigo shot of the furnace that the toys see, and I'm like,
All
that's
you
the
have
one
to
I
say
want.
is the scene in
Scene
Toy
in Toy
Story
Story
3.
3.
Know what you're talking about.
Yep. I'm like, that's what we need to evoke. So I like ripped that and put it in, and like put and you know, roto Dan into it. And so by like the time we were done, we had a very janky but very like proof of concept of what we were doing. And it was one of the scenes that we had, because of the timeline we were on, we had to lock sooner than the rest of the movie, because it had to go to Bruce, our VFX guy, who then spent the next couple of months working on all of the actual graphics that and the VFX, the CGI environments that would make up that scene. So going blind, but we loved it.
You know, what's really fun about this movie is how it satirizes and sometimes just embraces all sorts of different genres at once. And what I'm curious about is, with all the genres that the film covers, did you find any differences in your approach to editing something like the more comedic scenes as opposed to the action scenes?
Oh yeah. you know, it's there's always these ideas, incorrect, that like editors are kind of pigeonholed into whatever genre they usually work in, where like, you know, sometimes if you're a comedy editor, people be like, yes, you're a comedy editor, but can you cut drama? And what I loved most about working on this movie was because the genre changed every 5 minutes, like it's kind of this proof of concept again that like every editing is editing, and and every scene that you're working on kind of helps build into another one. So like when you're cutting comedy, there is you know, there's a rhythm to things, there's keeping pace, there's keep playing action so that people can playing the jokes on camera so that people can see it. That plays into an action scene where suddenly, like, instead of the jokes being on camera, the punches are on camera, and that's where the cut is happening. And then action scenes are choreography at their base level. So if you can cut the choreography in an action scene, then when you're doing the choreography in a musical scene, those kind of lead into each other. But on top of that, there is also the fact that it's not just the movie isn't just a parody of biopics, it's also a parody of like every genre under the sun that we put into it. And sometimes you want the cutting pattern to evoke specifically what you're parodying in order for it to get across. So like the scene that when Al is on stage berating everyone and he's shirtless, that is a parody of a scene from the movie The Doors. And that was the one that I tried to match the cutting pattern like pretty spot on to when I was putting it together, because that one was one where I was like, this needs to evoke what the original scene intended. Same thing with the Boogie Nights scene. You know, that's one where it's a long take, whereas, you know, Boogie Nights is one long take and this is a couple long takes cut together. But the same thing, you kind of let things breathe in that scene because it's evoking the how Boogie Nights did it.
So you know, we are an awards site, and you know, in addition to your Emmy nomination, which you got a couple months ago, you received you actually won the Eddie Award from the American Cinema Editors fellow guild, so Guild Strong.
Yep.
You won for editing this movie, which I believe is also, correct me if I'm wrong, your first feature.
Yes, my first solo. I worked as an additional editor on a couple of other features, but this was my first kind of solo feature.
What was it like to receive that honor from your fellow editors, and also to have it be for your first solo feature?
Oh, it was the biggest honor in the world. Like I said when I got up there that I felt kind of like three kids in a trench coat, and I meant it, because when I went to the like the pre-ceremony, I like was starstruck by everyone that was there. I'm like, this I admire every single person in this room. Like this year especially, everything was so amazing, and like I was just kind of sitting there being like, it is truly an honor just to be like even considered amongst this group of people. And I maintain that like new level of imposter syndrome has been unlocked in navigating all of that, but it's also just been kind of fun to go along with it. My category, especially for the Emmys, I am in awe of like literally everyone. You know, Kelly Dixon is such a legend. Stephanie is nominated for 3 different awards for Dahmer, for
History of the World Part Two.
History of the World Part 2 and Black Lady Sketch Show. Like literally that's just Steph Philo did a hat trick of editing proportions. So like I'm just sitting there being like, I am in awe of everyone, and it's such an incredible ride.
Well, Jamie, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all the best over this upcoming season. And to our viewers, please like, share, and subscribe, and keep coming to Going to Gold Derby to update your Emmy predictions in advance of the 75th Emmy Awards. Thanks so
Thank you
much.
so much.